Fed up of wardrobes, driven to distraction and drowning with doom boxes? Tired of living in chaos? Welcome to Decluttering Untangled, how to declutter when you're overwhelmed, ADHD or autistic. I'm going to help you uncover the secrets to decluttering, no matter what hurdles you face. You'll discover how to declutter, de-stress and transform your world. I'm Heather Tingle, reformed hoarder, neurodivergent declutter queen, and your guide through the maze of mess. Let's get untangled. Hello Untanglers, and welcome to another episode of Decluttering Untangled with me, Heather Tingle. So today's episode is a follow-on from last week, which is a roundup over the past year of podcasts. So today, I think I worked out there's at least 28 tips for you, which is all throughout the last load of episodes over the past year as kind of a celebration of the fact that Decluttering Untangled is a year old, and I really can't believe it. I've got so many more things to tell you and talk you through. So we start off this episode with going from episode number 26, where we talked about impulse spending and shopping addiction. And that was a vulnerable podcast for me because I went back to my childhood, and me and Maddie, who was the guest on the podcast, talked about our reasons for spending. So ADHD is something that I think means that you're more predisposed to shopping addiction and spending addiction. And for me, I found that it was a lot to do with the fact that when we were growing up, and me and Maddie both had the same experience of this, to stop boredom, really, the thing that we did as kids in teenage years, which, let's face it, they're quite your formative years, was to go into town and shop. So a lot of the time it was window shopping because we didn't have much money. But then obviously if you then get, for example, credit cards at university, or later on you get credit, there isn't that barrier anymore. So for me, a lot of my spending was to do with trying to be accepted, to really placate bullies, because I'd been bullied a lot of my life as a kid for not having things. So spending was a way to make me feel better, and that carried on into adulthood. And it was a boredom thing for me. So not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go, let me go to the shopping centre and just window shop, which would never be window shopping. So we talked a few things about what you can do, and the main one really is having creating the biggest gap you can between the impulse of wanting something and then actually buying it. So whether that's putting things in your shopping cart and then deciding to go back in 24 hours, removing your automatic credit cards or debit cards from your payments, so removing Google Pay, Apple Pay, removing your bank card from your phone and from your computer so that you physically have to go to your purse to type the numbers in. Or whether that's looking at a certain item, thinking you really like it, but if I really want it enough, I'll come back tomorrow and get it. And often that's just enough to remove that impulse that you really want. And I know Maddie really loves the idea of putting things in a shopping basket or cart online and then not actually buying them. She still gets the same thrill over putting it in the basket, but then walking away without purchasing. So that's a really good tip for you. Then I had a bit of a rant talking about summer and winter wardrobes. I totally believe that if you have a summer wardrobe and a winter wardrobe and they are both separate and you have to rotate them into circulation, that you have too many clothes. I don't think it's really possible, especially if you are in the UK, that you can have one wardrobe with a definite cut-off point, because for us, I mean, especially now we're pretty much in autumn and winter, there may be days that you'll get bright sunshine, and then in summer you might get one day of sunshine and the rest you might be absolutely chilly and you'll need to layer up. So I feel that having separate wardrobes is double the hassle without any of the positives other than the reason to have more. Now, it might work really well for you, and that's great. If it works for you and you have the space and the energy and the motivation to do it, wonderful. But for most of my clients, it does not work. They forget what they have, they double up, and they can never get the right outfit when they want it. Then I talked about something which sounds so silly, but is a real thing. And for me, it definitely is a real thing. The thing of saying to yourself, but it's a good box. And we could say the same with it's a good bag, it's a good whatever. But for me, there's something about cardboard boxes that just, if an item comes in a beautiful box, same with the thing with if it comes in a beautiful bag, I'm just a sucker for it. However, that does not mean you need to keep it. So you need to ask yourself, it might be a good box, but have you got a reason for it? Is there a reason to keep it? If there is, then make that happen. So I had a really lovely gift set, a really great box. I removed a really boring box and replaced it with the really pretty box. So repurpose those boxes or stand on them and put them in your recycling now. You do not need to keep a good box because you will no doubt be able to get another one very easy indeed. Then I had another guest expert coming in to talk about moving house. And I think the biggest aha moment for me was really two things. Remembering that the company that's helping you move works for you and you need to feel that you've got a really good line of communication with them, that you can ask them on the day, everything and anything, and know exactly what their role is. But the main one was that you can hire people to move everything for you, not just move stuff, but pack for you as well. And often it might be worth getting a quote. It might feel like a bit of an extravagance to get someone else to pack everything for you and unpack at the other end. And I know there's also quite a few APDO members that help with the unpacking. But to have an expert come in, remove everything, pack it up safely, take things in their van and then unpack at the other end makes such a difference. And also declutter before you move, before you even think about putting your house on the market. Declutter first, because space is money. And the more things you take with you, not only are you saving yourself a bigger job for later, which is going to cause more problems, you are also paying for that privilege. Then we moved on to saving things for best. And I always think it's a bit like when I was little, I was told, save the best things till last. Eat the horrible things on your plate first. And then I'd be full up by the time I got to the nice stuff. And that's no way to live. And I think it's exactly the same for saving things for best, whether it's clothes, whether it's having, something special that you're saving, like candles is a big one. Stop saving them. Enjoy them. They are not going to be enjoyed, shoved in a cupboard, never being used. Wear them out. And I think that is, especially if you're neurodivergent anyway, we have a big thing about perfection. And one of the things that stops us from wearing things or using things is trying to keep things perfect. And actually things aren't made to be kept perfect. They're made to be used and enjoyed. So use and enjoy. So wear your beautiful perfume. Don't keep it in a drawer for best. Wear the gorgeous clothes that make you feel great for any reason. You can make up any reason. You can go out and look gorgeous and just do it because you want to. And that is okay. Then something which is close to my heart, which is social anxiety and decluttering. Now, I struggle with social anxiety, as do a lot of my clients. And this episode was all about not pretending that social anxiety doesn't exist, but finding ways to work around it. And one of the best ways I found is making a relationship with, for example, people in the charity shop, letting them know that I'm coming. So I give them a ring, let them know when I'm coming. And now it helps me feel that, first of all, there's some help to get things out of my car because there's always a lot. But also it makes me feel like less anxious. I don't walk through the charity shop to do the donations, except in one charity shop, but it's massive. So I don't feel that anybody looks at me. But the other smaller charity shops, I let them know I'm coming, and some of them let me place stuff by the back door so they can just open the back door and put it straight into their back of house and start sorting it rather than me walking through the shop to get it. So that really helps me. using things like Google Maps and Street View to see what places look like really helps. And also using the app Olio. If I'm having a really people day, Olio really is a saviour for me, because I can put something on the app, someone will message, you don't even have to speak to somebody. They will message, say when they're coming, I say yes, that's fine, give them my address, and I leave it by the back door for them, or I leave it by my gate, and then they can come and get it whenever they want to. And that is like a no people thing. And also things like Vinted, for example, again, it's a no people exit plan. I can go to in-post lockers. If you aren't sure about in-post lockers, you don't know how to use them, if you look on my Instagram, or if you're in the Untangled Life membership, there is a video on there which teaches you step by step how to go through it. So don't think that you've got to do things and ignore your social anxiety. You don't. You can work with it and find workarounds that are really successful and can work for you. The other thing, which is probably quite a big thing for us autistics, is buying multiples of something. Now, if you're ADHD, you probably want to buy multiples just because you just want all the colours and all the things, and it's like a spree. However, for us autistics, I find it's good to buy multiples of things that I know I will use and are difficult to get again. So, for example, there's one pair of trainers that I will always wear, and I don't think they actually exist anymore. So when I last bought a pair of them, I definitely did buy 2 pairs. And this time around, I've now got through them. I now am buying secondhand to try and get hold of this pair of trainers. So if you are buying something that is going to be difficult to get again, and you know it is perfect for you, and it's basically you're buying a replica each time, that is a great time to buy multiples. Same with things like, for me, like toilet roll, I've got space to keep it. I can get a big subscription box of it, and I've got room for it, and it makes sense. When you don't buy multiples is when you get a top in one colour and you think, oh, I'll just buy it in all the other colours. Actually, the top that you originally wanted to buy, that's the one that you buy, because that's the one that really grabbed you, and the other colours probably don't grab you as much. You're buying for the sake of buying to feel good, and I really want you to consider why that is. Then we talked about books. Now, I've worked in a long time in libraries, so I have a big thing about books. I love to see houses with books. I think if kids have got books, it's amazing. I think if adults have got books, that is what a house should be. However, what I do find is that there are hundreds, thousands, loads of books in people's homes that actually are causing problems because they don't have the space to have them. It's causing problems because they've got piles of books everywhere, and it's also causing a bit of guilt because they've got maybe massive piles at the side of the bed they haven't read yet. What you need to do is look at it as an individual item. Each book is an individual thing, not as a collection of books. You are not doing anything bad by decluttering your books. There's no right number, but it's what are you actually excited to read? Not what's worthy, not what you should have, but what books do you really love? And I did talk about my love of some very childish books, but they make me feel good. So they will always stay on those shelves because I read them and they make me happy. And there are some books which I probably bought and thought, yeah, I want to read that someday, but I am never going to read it. And now I find a better way of doing it is I have Audible, because I can't actually read books in a one anymore. I really struggle with reading now. I think perimenopause has made my brain disappear. So unless it's like a children's book that I know off by heart, it isn't happening. So definitely look at your books. Greetings card is another one that lots of clients struggle with. So you get all these birthday cards, anniversary cards, and it's another thing that I think guilt and fear is a big one that keeps you trapped, keeping them all. And also the one day I'm going to do something with them. So one day I'm going to put them in a scrapbook. One day I'm going to do something with them. One day I'm going to. And that day virtually never happens. So that is a perfect time to find someone who can scrapbook or can do something with them, or thin them out and do what I do and only keep the best and the favourites and from the people you care about. not the random from 15 years ago that you can't actually remember who that person is anymore. Let go of them and minimize them. And now I have a system for each year. The latest cards from my best friends and my parents go into my memory box, and the ones from the year before then go. Unless it's a really gorgeous picture that I love, or someone's written something really like lovely and it makes me happy to read it. If it's just a card, then it can go. The next episode we talked about was decluttering when there's no space to start. And a lot of times that is about creating space or using space that you wouldn't really think of. So, for example, using the space on your bed, using the space in the bath to sort things, and creating little pockets of space, or going further back into an old wardrobe, for example, so that the stuff that's on the floor you can then put in the wardrobe. So decluttering when you've no space is more difficult, but it might help to start by just containerizing what you've got, by putting things into bags or boxes to start with, rather than trying to declutter, and just do like a first sift to try and like thin it out a little bit and let stuff go. But there will always be some space. So usually taking things into the garden, putting things into your car to have sort out, sitting in your car, sitting in your bath, in the shower, somewhere where you wouldn't automatically assume there was space. Then this is such a weird time now, because I think we've now got so used to paying for carrier bags that the fear that we had in the past about never having them ever again when we had to pay for them, it's kind of gone. But I think there is still I wouldn't say call it a hangover really, of keeping all the carrier bags. And it sounds silly, but keep the best. And I have had clients where we have sat and gone through the carrier bags and pulled out the nicest ones, pulled out the best ones, pulled out the ones that were really thick and glossy, or the ones from a certain shop that felt nice, or the ones that actually that's a really good bag, that one. We'll keep these. And I put them in my car now so that I actually use them. But you might want to keep them in the passenger seat of your car so that you actually remember they're there, rather than putting them in the boot or trunk if you're in America, and actually use them. Use them instead of bin bags, for example, to actually use some of them up. But don't be afraid that you're ever going to run out, because carrier bags are these things that they will always be available. Then I talked about decision fatigue. And decision fatigue is the theory, well, it's not even the theory, it's the reality of, I see it so often with clients as well. I see that we get to a certain point and their brain's just gone, because they can only make so many decisions a day. And there are a few tips you can do to make that better. So first of all is by practicing decisions. So starting off by decluttering 5 items one day, and then over the week move up to 7 items, 10 items, then go for time. So try half an hour of decluttering and keep going, because the more you practice making decisions, the easier it becomes, the more you start to trust yourself. But stop when you start to feel your brain finding it tough, because you'll have more regrets, you will more likely to make mistakes, and that is not what you want to happen. So one of the ways that you can, another way you can make decision fatigue less is by looking at being your future friend and removing some decisions the night before. So for example, one of the things that I do is I put a cup, a spoon and a tea bag ready for me for the next morning, so that all I have to do is put the kettle on. So that has automatically removed one decision of which cup to pick up in the morning. My clothes are ready the night before, so that is already minimizing some decisions of what I'm wearing when I wake up in the morning, because I'm not a morning person. It also helps. So make as many future decisions as you can. If you can do it now, then do. And that will help with your decision fatigue. Then a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek episode title was putting things in a safe space. Oh, the irony. And that is when you put something somewhere safe and then you can never remember where it is. The one thing that stops that from happening is actually having homes for things. But we did talk a bit about what other things you can do to make it easier, and having a safe space. So whether it's a place for presents, whether it's a place for important documents or whether it is the go drawer, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. That really helps. Then something which I think a lot of people were quite shocked by, and that was the if you're ADHD and you declutter quickly, it isn't always a good idea. And I think there's kind of I don't know, maybe it's a false sense of what is actually achievable, but when you watch TV, but I think there's that thing that if you're decluttering loads and loads and loads really quickly, that's really good, but actually it isn't, because what you need to do is your brain needs to catch up with your actions. You really need to consider what it is. And when you get that dopamine hit of decluttering things, it makes you feel good. That can feel quite addictive. So it's just like, oh, I'll just chuck that box because it's been up in the loft for 10 years and I've never used it. So obviously everything in there can just go. That is the worst thing you can possibly do, other than not decluttering in the first place. Because you don't get to practice those decision-making skills, which are really important. And also you might end up regretting something. So decluttering slowly, but making decisive decisions. Decisive, that's two words that doesn't make much sense, but making decisions continuously in a thoughtful and considered manner is much better than having a big chuck fest, because it's not sustainable. And that's the binge cycle you want to stop. The go basket, or for some people go drawer, but drawer isn't a really great idea because things can get stuck and you forget they exist, is something I use with a lot of clients. And that's having a shallow basket, usually somewhere near the exit of your home or entrance of your home, not right next to the door though, because you might want to put your keys in it and you don't want to be burgled, where you will put things that are essential for you leaving the house. So it might be your purse, your wallet, your lanyard, your keys, security pass. It might be a letter that you've got to post, if you actually do that anymore. It might be something that you've got to give back to a friend. It might be chewing gum. I don't know. Whatever you leave the house with goes in this go basket. And then when you come back in the house, that's where it goes. So even if the rest of your house is in total chaos, by having a box or a tub or some kind of basket, that will make so much difference to your everyday life. Because I was always like, where are my glasses? Where are my keys? Where's my wallet? Or you do what I did and have a handbag with a ton of stuff in it, and then you swap handbags and you forget to move all the stuff across, and then you end up with a load of handbags with random old dodgy sweets in that go really rock hard and minging. And then you forget that one important item because it's in my other handbag or it's in my other coat pocket. Yeah. So use a go basket. Then I talked about packing for holiday, and one of the earliest things I did when I was early on in my declutter journey was packing for my daughter's holiday. She was going somewhere with school, and what worked really well was having a carrier bag for each day and putting the clothes in that she needed for that day. And then at the end of that day, she would put the stuff back in the carrier bag. So if it was dirty, it didn't matter. And then she didn't have to try and figure out what was clean clothes and what were dirty clothes. And it's the same when you're packing for holiday, you can do that. And what I would suggest that you do is lay your outfits out for each day of your holiday and don't pack absolutely everything. There is nothing worse than coming back with a load of stuff that you didn't need to take, paying extra for your luggage, or having to carry a really heavy suitcase where you didn't really need to. Because I guarantee if you've never minimised what you're taking on holiday, half the stuff you never wore and you bring back with you. And let's face it, the less you take, the easier it is. And then you have more room for, I want to say holiday souvenirs, but that's probably not a great thing either, is it? But yeah, let's face it, that is what happens. So packing for holiday, don't be tempted to take everything to cover all eventualities, because if you really need something, you will find it wherever you're going on holiday. Then I talked about the difference between hoarding or chronic disorganization. And I think lots of people see a full house and think, oh, I must be a hoarder, or oh, they're a hoarder. First of all, I hate the word hoarder. I think it's really derogatory when it shouldn't be. Someone who has a hoarding tendencies or a hoarded home, I just like to think of it as a full home. And the main difference is how difficult it is to let something go, how excruciating it can be. generally when someone suffers with chronic disorganization, the house can look very, very full. But actually, when they're doing the decision making, they're very good at making the decisions and letting things go and feeling okay about it. Even if they're like me, they were full of sentiment for absolutely everything. It's figuring out where your sentimental lies compared to the space you've got, and that can really help. Whereas someone with hoarding disorder, which is a mental health illness, that is really difficult. It doesn't really matter what the item is. It will always be really difficult for them to let go. Then we talked about children's artwork. And this was this is something I see really all the time, in that there's so many scraps of paper with handprints and bits of paint on and scribbles. And you feel like you ought to keep everything, or you do the awful thing of like quietly throwing it into a bin when they're not looking. And that's really hurtful and can really backfire on you, so don't do it. So there's two things you can do with that. Is first of all, you can display and have a very set area to display those artworks or those craft things that they've created, the paper mache and the cardboard boxes and the cereal packets made into something with toilet roll tubes, and have a display space. And make sure that they are the ones that are in control of that display space. So it's got a finite amount of space. When something gets full, they then have to decide where it's going. And then look at the end of each academic year or birthday year or calendar year, then pick everything out of that year. And then that's when you can file it away in whatever way you want to do, whether you want to put it into a scrapbook, whether you want to photograph it and turn it into a photo book, or whether you want to just keep it in some kind of filing system. The second thing was I gave you the code Tingle to use with my little Da Vinci photo frames. And what they do is they are like really cool frames. And I don't ever recommend anything. I'm not affiliate for something unless I really believe in it. And this is a great company called My Little Da Vinci. And what they do is they have frames that you can fit 50 pieces of artwork in. So you can put the new one in over the top of the others, and the others stay nice and neat behind. So they are really cool little things to do as well. But the main thing is give your children control over what they keep and give them the rules to learn how to let things go. Because once you've cracked that, they will not have a problem when they get older. Then we talked about the role of control with decluttering. And I think the main takeaway from that is start to trust your gut and stop expecting someone to come in to swoop in and save you like some kind of decluttering superhero. That you are going to be your own superhero, because no one is coming to save you. So you need to be the one that goes, right, I can do this. And you're going to start by some decision making. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And the more you're going to trust yourself to do it. I think that is really important, that you have control over the process. And sometimes I think life feels like it's out of control because our house is out of control. But you can find those little pockets of control by doing the decluttering, by doing the organising, and you feel that you get your life back and you are more in control of your life than it being the other way around. Then we talked about back to school organisation. And this is all about how to deal with keeping on top of the letters that you get from school, about finding uniforms, about the stuff that just happens when you've got kids at school. And one of the best things I ever did was having a Monday to Friday set of drawers. With each Monday, they would have the uniform for each day, and that worked really well. But also look at your own home and figure out, where do your kids get ready in the morning? So do they get ready downstairs? In which case, there's no point having the clothes upstairs. Bring them downstairs so that they can get ready easier and it's easier for you. Then one of the biggest podcast episodes I got with the most messages really was about being eco-friendly. And the main takeaway from this one was, you cannot save the world if you yourself are drowning. So if that means not recycling everything and putting something in landfill, then that is your permission to do it. Because once you have decluttered, once you have organised, once you are back in control of your world, it is so much easier to be eco-friendly then. And minimising what you buy is one of the best ways that you can be eco-friendly. So being mindful about what you bring into your home. Then I talked about hand-me-downs. I think hand-me-downs are great. However, if you have got a biggish gap between children or other family members that you hand me down to, then it is not worthwhile doing it. It gives you extra stress, it gives you extra responsibility, and it gives you something else that you have to think about and remember. And that is never a good thing with our brains and how busy we all are. So let them go, because I can guarantee you can get the stuff easy again and again and again. Unless it is something very, very niche, very, very special. So, for example, a christening gown, baby's first item that they came out of hospital in, for example. That's different. But things like prams, for example, would go mouldy if they're not used. Clothing is just giving yourself a headache and storage issues for later, and they can get messed up with current wear, and what does fit, what doesn't fit gets messed up, because let's face it, kids grow so quick, it's difficult to keep up at the best of times. So hand-me-downs, don't do it unless it's something that's mega, mega important to you. Then I talked about bedding, and there was 2 tips for this one. Bedding is something that I struggle with because I'm 5 foot nothing and my bed is big. So I have, with permanent marker, written on my bedding long side and short side, so LS and an L on one side and an S on the other side. So I know which is the long side of the bedding, which is the short side when I've got a fitted sheet, for example. And also, one of the best things I taught my mum was to put an entire set of bedding in the pillowcase for that bedding, so she only has to grab a pillowcase and she's got everything she needs to remake the bed. Then I talked about broken or replaced items. So when you break something, you then replace it. And sometimes we hold on to the old one just in case. And a lot of that is fear, because we don't like change. So for me, when my favourite shoes that have been replaced by a brand new pair, which is identical, I wear them until they are literally falling to pieces, because I don't really want to wear the new ones, because the new ones are so pristine and they don't feel quite the same as the old one. Or it might be that you don't swap your phone over straight away, or you buy something new and the old one is still there. If you are at the point where you are buying a new one to replace it, that is when the old one needs to go. Full stop. Just let it go and know that the new one will feel like the old one soon enough. And also, when we're on that kind of replacement items, I talked about when a sentimental item breaks. And one of the biggest takeaways from this was remembering that the item is not the memory itself. What it is a gateway to that memory. And there are other ways that you can grab that gateway and be reminded of it. You don't need the item to do it. And by replacing a sentimental item with an identical thing, it doesn't work, because it is never the same item. You will always know it wasn't the item that you got at that place or when you went to that thing. So it's really not worth doing. Then I talked about vacuum storage bags and when they can be useful and when they're not. Generally speaking, vacuum storage isn't a great idea. It can ruin your fabrics, and you shouldn't keep things in there for over 6 months, because it can cause problems with the fibres. Then I talked about finding the motivation to declutter. And the main thing with this is, if you wait for motivation to hit, you will be waiting an awful long time. So one of the best things you can do is have side quests, which are proactive things little jobs that you've maybe been putting off. And when you've then got a big job that you don't want to do, you will be proactive and do those little side quests instead of doing the big scary job. And also get your motivation first by doing something easy, and then that eases you into it, rather than waiting for motivation to hit to do the big scary thing. That doesn't happen. So do some little easy things first that builds you up into doing the big scary thing. And then one of the latest episodes was making your home Insta-worthy. The main takeaway from that is it needs to be your home set up how you live with, I think, when you get decluttering, when you declutter and then add personality, that's what makes something beautiful, rather than trying to have a home like everyone else's. So when you declutter, your home will reappear to you, but don't think it has to not have things in the way that works for you. Your home needs to work for you, and that means by having strategies and systems set up Once you do that, your home takes care of itself. Your home, trust me, is beautiful. So there you go. That's a roundup of at least, I think, 28 podcasts. Oh, that's not bad going in 34 minutes. I hope it's helped have that recap. So until next time, be kind to yourself. Remember you're not alone and keep untangling. Thanks for joining me for today's episode of Decluttering Untangled. If you found anything that I've said today helpful, please do me a favour, hit that subscribe button or leave me a review. It's like receiving a virtual high five that keeps me going and lets me know that I'm helping real people out there and I'm making a difference. Please remember, you're not alone in this. I'm building a community of fellow untanglers over on Facebook. Just visit the show notes for the link to my free decluttering community. So until next time, remember, you're not alone, you're not lazy, you can untangle your life.